All right, let's think about what do these photos have in common. Spend a little bit of time and look at these photos and tell me what similarities might you see. Feel free to access the chat and with any questions or comments. But for now, my question to you all is what do all of these photos have in common? Now, what you might notice is that these photos all show people coming together in some capacity, right? We see perhaps people on a vacation, a family, people coming together, maybe having fun and sharing in an outing, or even people protesting or supporting each other on an issue. We also see someone maybe connecting via some sort of social media, some sort of device, right? So let's spend a little time talking about these devices and the ways in which people come together. Thank you for joining me. My name is Dr. Tamika Edwards. I am a licensed psychologist here in St. Louis, Missouri, and I am also a member of Friendly Temple Church. And I am happy to be a part of Fresh Perspectives to talk about social media and screen time. So I hope to have a very engaging presentation, and I hope that you all are able to utilize the chat and with any questions or concerns. I also have left my email address here at dr.tse@tsepsychologicalservices.com. So if you have any additional questions or concerns, feel free to reach out. Thank you. All right, so some of the topics that we will be covering. First, of course, we have to define social media and screen time. What exactly is that? What does that look like? How are we accessing social media? What is the statistics? How are Black Americans using social media and screen time? What are the benefits? What are the drawbacks? What are some effects? How is it affecting us mentally, emotionally, physically? And ending, of course, with some recommendations and also references. So let's spend a little time together. And once again, thank you for joining me. So, first, let's think about social media. Now, social media is an online platform that all of us use, right? All ages, children, adolescents, adults. We all use this to connect with others. We share our content and we also form social networks, right? We connect with people that have similar interests. Social media is very useful for remaining connected in that way. Now, when we think of screen time, it has a little bit more of a broad definition. And that tends to be the total time spent viewing screens. So, mobile phones, TV, computer, tablets, any other handheld devices are considered screen time whenever we're laying our eyes on them, right? And so many of us spend lots of time on screen time. Now, I want us to think for a moment, and if you can, once again, go to your chat and think about what are some healthy usage of screen time versus unhealthy. What do you think could be considered healthy when we think about screen time, and what do you think could be considered unhealthy? Spend a little time in sharing, please. And if you're still putting something in the chat, then think about healthy. When we think about healthy, we think about, maybe this past year, there are things that we just had to do over the screen because we could not be together. So we think about work or school, um, maybe art or music, and just kind of finding new ways to connect and learn. Those are all healthy usage of screen time. Now let's think about unhealthy. Now, when I think of unhealthy, I'm thinking of more unsafe websites or, content that is inappropriate given the age, or even the usage of screens or social media when we're supposed to be doing something else, right? Sometimes we get lost in a movie on Netflix or Hulu, and we really do have other deadlines. So that can end up being unhealthy. But we'll spend a little bit more time talking about that. So when we think of social media, of course, we have lots of different options, right? So as you can see, I put up some images, I put up some words as well. So the names of the sites as well as some identifying images for the site. Now, many of you are able to recognize these social media sites just by the image that I put up, and others are more familiar with the words. And some of us may say, now, what's that? I've never heard of it, or I've never used it. Um, Take a few seconds and see if you can even connect the image with the word. Let's see how well you're able to do that. Um, and I will go ahead and age myself and let you all know that MySpace is still in use. It is a very perhaps old school way of connecting, maybe one of the first ways. Tom was our first friend. So um, some of you all may be familiar with MySpace and some of you may not. Um, are there any other ones that maybe I'm forgetting? Am I missing any? Feel free to add it to the site. It's important to note that many of these sites have age requirements, minimum age requirements. So you have to be at least 13 many times to make a page, to log in, to share content, or you also have to have parental permission. So and also people's involvement with social media can be very, very important, right? How many friends we have, how many followers we have, how many likes we get. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that and hopefully being able to have a healthy discussion, a healthy chat. Now, I have a video coming up that I thought was pretty funny, and it demonstrated kind of the importance of social media to this particular age group. So take a look.
Sushi Tuesday. That's fire. What's up, Crazy Ice?
Me. I'm what's up. I got a blue check. Dude, I'm verified.
What does that mean?
You're so sweet. It means that I'm important enough now that people actually need to know that I'm the real Zoe Johnson. So, kind of a big deal.
Word, that's crazy. So, what does it mean that I have two?
All right. So thank you for that. And as you can see, this blue check can mean I'm verified. And so oftentimes you'll find celebrities that have blue checks. And so she's basically saying she's just as popular as a celebrity. So as we know, social media can be very important to our identities many times. So let's spend a little time, not too long, talking about statistics. So there was one research study that talked about the idea that they surveyed adults, and many adults said that they spend at least 11 hours a day looking at a screen, right? And so we can think about ways in which we connect or ways in which we work. And that was pre-COVID though, right? So that was before many of us were even working from home. And so after COVID, post COVID, or during COVID, these same adults have said that they are increased their screen time usage to about 19 hours. 19 hours out of a 24-hour day of being connected to the screen. And also it's important to note that another survey study showed that Black teens and millennials are more active on social media than their white peers. Now, it may not be by much, but it just goes to show just how important social media and screen time is into our lives. It's very important tool in our lives. So right here, I have a couple of graphs. This graph right here, I believe the olive green one, the one in the middle, shows social media used by race. And as you can see, we have white users, Black users, and Hispanic users, and they're pretty neck and neck. So it's basically saying about close to, I don't know, maybe 70% of African Americans use social media. And the next graph shows how it's broken up in age. So the first age group, as you can see, is leading the 18 to 29-year-olds, or it's almost close to 90% of 18 to 29-year-olds use social media. We have 30 to 49-year-olds that it's about maybe 80%, 50 to 64-year-olds close to 75. And finally, we have individuals over the age of 65, not quite at 50% using social media, which can be pretty surprising when you think about it. Um, Now, if you're interested in knowing just your own personal usage, many times our smartphones now will give us that data. It will tell us each week how much time we have spent on screen, on our phone. Um, and, many of us may be shocked to know, but most of us check our phones constantly, constantly. And research has also shown that if we spend about 30 minutes a day on social media, we will lead to improvement in our well-being. And I know, to go from, maybe close to 3 or 4 hours a day on social media to 30 minutes may seem drastic, but research has shown that it can have a drastic effect on our health and our well-being if we reduce our social media usage. But let's talk about the benefits of social media. And there are many. There are definitely many benefits. So, social media has been a lifesaver during this time. We've had many things go on that have prevented us from being able to connect, right? So, social media and screen time has prevented millions of children from falling behind at school, right? So, there's been virtual learning. It has allowed adults and parents to work from home while our kids were at home learning. It has helped us to stay connected, to get connected with people that have similar concerns or issues. It's been also noted that many young Black users of social media or screen time, so individuals under the age of 50, like to post about issues such as Black Lives Matter or any other concerns or political issues that may be out there. There have been ways in which we connect, right? So we form networks and communities. We have hashtag Black Lives Matter, hashtag Black Boy Joy, hashtag Black Girls Rock, and hashtag Black Girl Magic that came about due to social media. So when you put in those hashtags, oftentimes you'll find content related to those concerns, to those issues. You'll find videos, you'll find readings, you'll find people that are talking about issues that maybe you're interested in. So that is a definite benefit of social media. We can't forget about Black Twitter, right? Black Twitter is a community in which people oftentimes share in the same language, they share in the same dialogue, they connect, they are able to come together and have similarities, laugh at similar jokes. So when we think about the community sense for social media, it is definitely there. Our online activism can lead to offline activism. Many times we use social media to meet up, to organize protests, to organize meetings and ways in which we can make our communities better. We've also used social media for restfulness or restorative, right? Ways in which we can just kind of replenish after everything has been happening that has been so demanding and taxing on us. So, for many of you, you may have seen comedians have been jumping on social media. They're sharing their content, 2 or 3 minute clips right? But we're seeing content that we normally would not have seen if it wasn't for social media. We're coming together, we're laughing, we're 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 learning more about people and their products and what they're selling, and people are starting businesses and selling things via social media, right? And of course, we have therapy. Therapy has had to happen via screen. Many of my clients have switched from in person to online, and it has been quite useful and beneficial in terms of how we use it. So, when we think about social media and screen time, there are definite benefits for it. There are ways that we are able to connect, to relax, to support, to encourage, right? And of course, we know church has really, really allowed us to remain connected with our religion and our spirituality because it has been able to transition smoothly online. So, definite benefits. Now, of course, when we think about benefits, we have to think about some of the drawbacks. So, here, of course, is another clip that I thought was interesting when we think of social media and screen time.
Oh, it's so nice to all be sitting down together. You can tell me something I did today.
I drew a horsey.
Good for you, son. Anyone have a charger? I'm at like 2%.
All right. So, any thoughts? Any thoughts about that short clip? I believe what you saw is a family gathering together for dinner and perhaps engaging in communication and conversation, and someone that was not quite connected due to their usage of screen or perhaps social media. Feel free to leave any comments or thoughts in the chat, and I will hopefully be able to get to them. All right. So, drawbacks, right? It disconnects us. We could literally be in the same room with the people that we love or the people that we like. And if we're on our screen, we can be disconnected from what is happening in front of us, right? It can be quite a distraction. It can also cause us to procrastinate. Many of us have deadlines or things that need to be done, and we're not doing them because we are tied into our screens. We are engaged into a video that we see or a comedian that we see. We are, you know, oftentimes looking for that instant gratification and not necessarily focusing on what is maybe due or what is more valuable in our lives at the time. It also can affect our emotional state, right? People oftentimes may get on social media and feel, you know, depressed or anxious about what they see their friends doing or what they see their friends have. They have this big house or they have this big car or they have this anything that we want, right? This loving family, this education, whatever it may be, it can definitely impact us emotionally and also impacting our self-esteem. You might see people a bit more irritable, see people a bit more argumentative, and it may not be for any other reason than what they've seen on social media. Um, our emotional state can be dysregulated. We might wake up and look at social media first thing in the morning, and we set out to have a good day. All of a sudden, our mood has been changed because of the immediate thing that we just saw on social media. Of course, we've all seen violence or trauma via social media. How many of you have seen death or violence or racism or discrimination? And it's been ways to connect, but it also has been traumatizing because the same way you go to some of those hashtags and look for content that supports those hashtags, you're also seeing the content that helped create those hashtags, right? So we're seeing the death, replayed over and over again, or we're seeing things that are just not necessarily good for our emotional state at the time. It's also important to note that addiction happens when we think about our level of involvement with our screens or social media. You know, how many times have you said, "Oh, I'm gonna put my phone down and I'm going to go and do something else." And then 3 minutes later, you find yourself looking at your phone again, right? You heard a ding or a charm or whatever it was. And so you got to look at it so that you can acknowledge that you got the like, or you want to see how many likes your post just received, right? And so the same way that your body, your brain is responding to your cell phone is oftentimes the same way a person that's addicted to drugs is responding to drugs and or a narcotic. And so a cell phone or screen time and social media, it shows the same type of imagery on many brain scans that people may see with their addiction towards narcotics or even other um, substances, right? So screen time and social media can be very, very addictive, and who wants to be addicted to things in that way? Um, and also, of course, when we think about physical concerns, right? How many times have you gotten up from a computer and your eyes may be hurt? You know, I have these glasses on now and they kind of help kind of block the screen a little bit, but they cause eye strain when you're looking at a computer all day. You may get headaches, or you may feel discomfort in how you're sitting, or even in how you're holding your phone. And so it's important to think about when we're thinking about the drawbacks for our social media usage. And also in regards to procrastination, right? Sometimes it prevents us from doing physical activity, right? Because we're either tied to a movie on Netflix or a series on Netflix, or we're tied to our phones or our computers and we don't want to get up. So there are some definite drawbacks to social media and screen time. And one more video for us to take a look at.
I'm not hungry.
What's the matter, sweetie?
I miss Daddy.
I miss
Hey, everyone shut up. This filter makes me look like a cat. It's so funny, it's making me cry.
All right. So any other thoughts regarding that? What do you see happening with this, with Will Ferrell and his family? What are some things that you're seeing or that's jumping out to you? Feel free to leave that in the chat. So, you know, definitely our usage of screen time can be quite distracting, right? People are, as I mentioned earlier, we're distracted. We don't see what's happening sometimes with our own family, with our own loved ones. Sometimes we're not meeting the needs of the people that we love the most because of our screen time and our social media presence. Um, Oftentimes it can lead to isolation, right? Many times, you know, when we think about how many times we binged a movie or binged a series on Netflix or Hulu because, you know, it's addictive, right? Once we start a sitcom, we just want to keep going and watching. And next thing you know, we spent the whole weekend inside finishing up The Shy or some other series and haven't connected with anyone all weekend. Um, it also, like I mentioned earlier, may cause our physical health to decline. We're basically eating in front of the TV or the computer, and we're not exercising. We're not going for those walks. We're not going outside and putting our hands in the dirt and planting and things like that, getting some fresh air. Also, you know, I would dare to say if Will Ferrell continues to have these type of interactions with his family as he does at dinner when it comes to social media, his relationships will be jeopardized, right? Those kids will feel like their needs are not being met. Perhaps his spouse will feel like she's not connected at all to her husband, and so oftentimes our overusage of screen, our overusage of social media can definitely affect us in negative ways. Um, our experiences are replaced. We're not going places, and instead we're just viewing everything online and not getting out and experiencing as we once would have. Um, we talked earlier about just how self-esteem is impacted, right? And so we talked about maybe the idea of depression and anxiety happening and feeling more isolated, but really the truth is we're comparing apples to oranges, right? Because what you see on social media may not be real life, and many of us know that, but many of us do not. And so we have to really pay attention to that and make sure that we're providing some balance. So I want to speak a little bit about kids specifically in terms of how screen time and social media affects them, right? So we may think about language development. Um, when we're thinking about kids and their usage of screens and social media, when we are giving our kids this type of activity to partake in, it can slow down speech development, right? Kids aren't learning words. They're looking at things on television and they're not able to formulate or learn speech and as if they would if they were engaged with other people, right? Or when we think about motor development, right? You learn so much when you're outside and you're able to run and you're able to jump and you're able to throw a basketball or swing a bat. Motor development is definitely important. And if we spend more time on screens, then that is also being affected. Social emotional development, right? Kids being able to recognize what it looks like when someone is having a conversation with them, right? Eyebrows raised, reactions to what they're saying, smiling, laughing, emotional. Kids really do learn by face to face interaction. So finding ways to ensure that that is happening and not just putting a screen in front of a child for learning activity. Of course, we want to consider, cyberbullying and violence that happens. So not only, is it possible that kids can be being bullied or left out by their peers, but they're also sometimes being navigated to other sites that are not age appropriate, right? So if you're looking at YouTube and your child may be looking at YouTube and you see, you left them with a cartoon and then you hear in the other room there's a deep voice that was not anything related to the cartoon. Oftentimes children can be led down the wrong road when it comes to their social media usage. And so having a child in front of a screen or in front of social media unattended is very, very dangerous and can lead to grave consequences. And so we do not want to, do that at all, really. And also, I mentioned earlier about reality. Oftentimes, kids don't know reality versus acting. And so, what they're seeing on social media, what we may know not to be true, they may think it's reality and they may think it's okay. And so, making sure that kids understand that oftentimes what they're seeing on screen is not real. So no, they can't practice those wrestling moves on their little sister or their little brother. No, they can't hit their child over the head or their friend over the head with a pot or a pan and think that, a little birdie will just fly around their head. Understanding that kids need that extra support and guidance when allowing them screen time. So I want to ask again, what how much time should kids spend on social media or screen time? I broke it down by ages. So infants, anyone before the age of 1, right? And then we have 1 to 2-year-olds, and then 3 to 4-year-olds. What is an appropriate amount of screen time that can be given to infants. And so remember, when we think of screen time, we're talking about TV, we're talking about tablets. How much time is okay? So go ahead and put your answers in the chat. Throw out a few numbers, if you will, and I'll take a look at them as well. And we'll also talk about the older children in just a second. All right. So if anyone said anything over 0 for children up to the age of 2, then you weren't quite right. Infants and 1-year-olds should not be looking at screens, right? In terms of their brain development, in terms of their, just development in general, right? Screens are not necessarily important or not necessary for development. In fact, they are discouraged. Now, for 2 to 4-year-olds, the okayed amount is 60 minutes or less, right? So, and that's a day. So perhaps a child may look at, an alphabet series or a number series or something. From 2 to 4 years old, screen time should be 60 minutes or less. And so, and I know that that can be challenging, right? Because when we have other things to do, it's hard to not give a child a cell phone, because we know that they will become addicted, that they will become completely engrossed in that screen. But research has shown that in terms of thinking about children's development, it is encouraged that they spend less than 60 minutes from the age of 2 to 4 on a tablet daily. And that's not even regularly, right? So we're not talking 2 to 4-year-olds on a screen 45 minutes every day, but that, maybe a Friday 45-minute viewing, or, a Wednesday, or, but infrequently, and not necessarily daily. Now, for older children, it gets a little bit more complicated, right? Because older children are a little bit more independent. They're out doing their own thing. They have tablets. So when we think about older children and their screen time usage, we think about everything else that they have going on in their lives, right? We're thinking about 9 hours of sleep on average. We're thinking about schoolwork getting done, physical activities, eating 3 meals a day, hopefully, hobbies, collecting cars, robots, whatever that may be, dolls, whatever it is. And we also think about the interaction that you may have with the family. And so after all of those things have been completed, then yes, screen time is okay. And so hopefully that's not leaving very much time for screen time. So thinking about it, has your child done their homework? Has their child spent a little bit of time outside? Has your child played with that new robot that they had to have just 2 months ago? Has your child said hello to their dad or their mom or their brother or their sister? Have these things all done? Did they sit down and eat dinner without any screen time or holding a phone? So these are all things to think about. So you might be asking, well, Dr. Edwards, what do I do if I can't, just hand my child the phone or the tablet when I have work to do? So that brings me to my next slide, in which we talk about moderation, right? Moderation. How do we, you know, doing everything in moderation is useful. We all know that, right? And so, it doesn't mean that we can't be on the screen, but it means take some time and do other things as well. Also, setting a good example. You can see on this picture here, this little girl is looking like she's doing some sort of meditation, which we do have coming up in a few days with Fresh Perspective. And, mom is teaching her how to do this meditation, right? We also have other things we can do. Go outside. We might tell our kids to go outside, but go outside as well. Plant something. Um, Listen to music outside. Get a little bit of sun. Enjoy. Of course, in a safe way and social distance. Enjoy outside. Move around. Get to moving. If you live by a park or you are in close driving distance to a park, go outside, get to moving. It doesn't have to just be a sports activity that your child is engaged in. It could be a walk around the track, up to the community college or the nearby school, walking around the track. Turning our notifications off of our phone, right? Some of us have even had to remove the apps because, as we talked about, Facebook and Instagram or Snapchat or LinkedIn, Twitter are all so addictive. We all look for the likes, we all look for the shares or the mentions, right? And so turning off your notifications. Also, maybe finding times or places in the home where media is just not allowed, right? Maybe it doesn't come to the dinner table. It doesn't come to the dining room table, or even for that matter, to the kitchen. Maybe it doesn't come to the bed, right? When you go to bed, you don't put a screen in the bed. No tablet to fall asleep. You want to read one of those books that we actually used to have where they have pages and everything. And I have a few suggestions right here I'll get to in just a second. We might also even have conversations with our kids about what does it mean to be safe? What does it mean if you're on a site and you hear a different voice or you hear a different language or you hear, someone that you're not supposed to hear? Encouraging that child to come to you, talk to me, or even if it means putting parental controls on and having conversations with your child. How often should we be on our device together or separately? you know um, Maybe your child says 3 hours a week, you say an hour, meeting in the middle or towards the middle, an hour and a half, right, where you just spend a little bit of time together, agreeing on what is useful or what is decided upon when it comes to that type of usage. I have a couple of books here that might be helpful. I know this past year has been hard for parents and kids, and screen time has definitely increased for everyone. So here are a couple of books: Spoiled Right, Delaying Screens and Giving Children What They Really Need. And also, this is by Dr. Owens. This next one is Reset Your Child's Brain, a 4-week plan to end meltdowns, raise grades, and boost social skills by reversing the effects of electronic screen time. And so you can also take a look at some of those resources as well. All right, so we have come to the end of my presentation. Thank you all for participating and being present. And I'm very hopeful and thankful for having this opportunity to do this with you all, with the church, with the Fresh Perspective team. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat. I also left my email address, and I'll have another slide in just a second with my email address if you are wanting to reach out afterwards. Are there any questions or comments? So thank you all for participating in my presentation, and this has been great. Feel free to continue leaving questions in the comments. And as I stated, this is my email address if you would like to reach out to me, and I appreciate you. Thank you very much.